All right, folks, welcome to another Monday Night Live, and we are answering all of your questions about drones. So put them in the comments if you're not familiar. This is what we do. We do this every week. We answer close to 100 questions every week, actually. Last week was 80, almost 90, I think, questions that we did. So welcome. We're here, as always. I see already a lot of questions, a lot of folks in the comments. I'm going to say hi to everyone. I'm going to find my little folder here where Jason answers and finds all of the questions. So I don't know where it is. It's on my Slack. I don't know why I can't find it. Anyways, we'll find it in a second. Hope everybody had a good week. There's been not a whole lot of changes. I know people are always asking about the DJI ban and all of these things. We talked about, if you haven't watched News Update, this is kind of an important one. We talked on last week about the two things. We talked about the fact that the NDAA is the National Defense Authorization Act is likely going to go sometime before the holidays, before Thanksgiving even. So if that's the case, because there's a disagreement between the House and the Senate, it is likely that the language that will prohibit drones will not be included. We're hoping. That's kind of what we're hoping at the moment. And then if that's the case, then good. Then it would be pushed down, push down the line a little bit. And then the other one was the fact that you have the ability to make a comment on the national, oh crap, what is it called now? ASDA? The ASDA. And so make sure you go watch the latest news update that we put out, and then find more information about how to do that. Sorry, I'm still trying to find this stupid live Q&A folder. There it is. Damn it. All right, so we can get to the questions. All right, let's go and say hi to folks. We have Hike and Fly here quite a bit. Bob is here. Scott Jordan, Thorold Inspired, Jared, Northern Drone Guy, Sheen, Sergio is here, also here quite a bit. John as well. Familiar names, Richard Hooker. Kenneth, we have Official Green Diamond. Jared, I think I said that already. Pat, Rick Hone is here. Bet on Yourself Media, cool. Doug, John, Ben Pacheco is here. James, Ronald, Retired Fire Chief, also here quite a bit. Lone Maverick, Guahan, if I said that correctly. Curtis Warren, Jillian B from the community. We have Scott. We also have Sparky. We have Mark. We have Vic. Vic's here. We have Super 8 Mil 1. We have Conway, Dean, DJ, Resurrect. I get it. Resurrect. Michael is here. James, our good friend James, who's here all the time, formerly Film Photography. Max. Anyways, see a lot of folks. That's awesome. I was, some of you are asking about the building. I was in the building this weekend, working quite a bit in there. I was in the building this morning doing a walk around with the general contractor. Things are moving forward. We have quite a few walls up. Quite a few of these walls are half sheetrocked. The reason they're half sheetrocked is because one side of the wall needs to stay open for inspections. We have flooring going in a couple of the rooms. We have more flooring going in. We have different types of flooring going into the building, including polished concrete, which should start later this week, probably on Wednesday or Thursday. That's going to take a while. It's going to take about 5 days for them to do the polished concrete in the building, because it's, I think, 7,000 or 8,000 square feet of polished concrete. The rest of the flooring is laminate, and then a section in the studio is going to be padded flooring, which we will do very last at the end. We have walls that are painted pretty much everywhere now, except for a few rooms that are obviously the new walls that are getting built. We have a lot of little fixes to existing electrical. This was a lot of gremlins, let's put it this way, in a building. You can imagine taking over a 15,000 square foot building and nothing was really labeled all that great. So the guys in there have been doing a lot of work on cleaning all that up, cleaning some of the old walls that weren't really standing all that well. So a lot of work has been done. I'm really excited about showing you guys eventually. If you come on the Friday night when we do our happy hour, I usually show a couple of videos, but storage area should be ready pretty soon as well. And we get the permits back from the city. I just heard from the contractor right before coming live with a couple red lines on it. But after that, the red line should be over. And then we can, we finally have the final permit, which took 2.5 months to get to. So exciting. It still is expected that we will move in by the end of the year. I'm really hoping. Now that we have the permits today. If you asked me this morning, I don't know, but now I'm a bit more comfortable that this is what's going to happen. I just bought 176 lights, 180 lights to put in the building this afternoon, which should be delivered on Friday to light up the whole place, which is exciting. Don't know what else. I feel like I'm living there. Yeah, I feel like that's enough. You're right. I've been living here at work. I go home and then usually I go back in the building when my kids go to bed and my wife does her craft. So I've been living in that building half the time. Does Jillian have an office? There will be what we call the traveling salesman and saleswoman office. One of the desks is going to be available for folks that move in, that come in to work. The co-founder Johan comes in every once in a while, and it's good to have an office that's open. So Jillian will actually be here on Friday, visiting for other reason, not really visiting us, but she's going to stop by. We're going to give her a quick tour over there. Very brief visit.
I'm going to try to record a little something.
Oh yeah, maybe. I know she's coming with other friends, and she's coming with other folks. So it's going to be exciting. And then soon we should be able to build the desk right after Thanksgiving, I think. My guess is on Cyber Monday, or whatever the Tuesday is called these days after Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday, I think. We will be hopefully starting to build a desk. So anyways, it's fun. Sparky says I could polish that concrete in about 2 hours. Please, come on in. Please do. Okay. Well, let's get to the questions, I think, folks. Jared says, are there any updates on the U.S. Customs and how long this whole stopping shipment is going to go on? I've had an EO in custom possession for over a month and a half. Wow, that's crazy, Jared. No, there hasn't been. So we've been hearing fewer and fewer people with issues, I think. But I think those that get caught in customs initially are taking forever. Our friend Ken just got his Mavic Air 3 is Air 3S out of customs after all this time. He it was sent to him by DJI to review, and then he never got it. He was able to get his hands on another one, I think. But yeah, nuts. Next question. So I don't know. Yeah, to answer the question, which I didn't do. I don't know. It's been a hit and miss. We get ours. I think it was in customs for 2 days, and then went straight through yours. Yeah.
I heard it's with the Miami port.
Yep. So yeah, I wonder, Jared, are you in Miami? It looks like the Miami port has been a bit more picky. Official Green Diamond says, is there a Part 107 testing area in New England? Yeah, they're everywhere. So go and search. PSI is the testing center that does on behalf of the FAA. If you're a student in our course, we have links in there and then instructions on how to schedule your exam. So go back to the course and search for that. By flying under 400 feet, does this count for elevation? Can you not fly in places that have an elevation over 400 feet? Remember, 400 feet is AGL, above ground. So if the ground does this, then you're allowed to go and follow the terrain. So if the ground goes up, you go up, and then if the ground goes down, you follow down as well. As long as you are 400 feet above the ground, that's right below the drone, that's what the regulation is. When will they put jet engine on small drones after the war? Question mark. Good question. I don't know. I mean, there are, if you consider a fixed wing RC, as a drone, which it technically is, it's an unmanned aircraft, then they have them already on, but I don't know, on multi-rotors, I'm not sure if we'll ever see that. What should I do if I plan to fly internationally, specifically Bosnia, Croatia? Croatia is a beautiful country. You'll have to go to the equivalent of the FAA in that country and find what the rules are for flying a drone. I don't know what it is in those specific areas, but make sure you do some research. Kenneth says, is any public easement legal to fly from? Sidewalks along streets, pull-offs along country roads, any public property like school? Yeah, it should be. It should be. Michael says, when will you be streaming from the new place? Good question. We don't have internet there, although we did test. I think I mentioned it last week. Were we here last week? Yeah, we were here last week with Billy. We tested Starlink in the van, and it worked really well. And we still have the connection for the rest of the month. So we might actually bring Starlink over there and maybe do a happy hour from over there. I don't know if we're ready for the Monday night live from there just yet. There's still...
Just wait and make it really nice and good.
Well, we could have happy hour would probably be more appropriate than doing the Monday night from there. Also, there's still workers working every day over there, and it's 4 o'clock here, so they work until 5 typically. So it would be noisy, and it's very dusty right now. There's a lot of paint dust left over. There's a lot of construction dust. It's quite a bit of a mess right now. So I don't think I want to bring the expensive cameras in there yet. Maybe a GoPro. What is the format of your Friday happy hour? James, it's mostly just, it's Jillian and I chit-chatting about our week, talking about drones, talking about airplanes. It's open to everyone in the community, so airplane and drone. We talk about maybe some recent events that have happened, something fun that we're going to do. It's very relaxed. It's very just us talking about everything and anything, and interacting with folks that are in the audience as well. So.
Community, in case he doesn't know where it's at.
Yeah, so James, if your community is community.pilotinstitute.com, you can get in there if you're a student. Even if you're in a free course, there's like 50-some thousand people now in there. And it's a place where you can leave comments, interact with other people. It's the replacement for the old Facebook group that we had that was very disorganized. The new community is much more organized and a lot more active as well. So.
Good videos. I think our happy hour, we get fewer questions but more attention.
Yeah, the happy hour is different than this. This is me answering any and every question. The happy hour is much more flowy about whatever topic comes up. We can talk about lava lamps, from lava lamps all the way to the new building, showing pictures. It's more of a behind the scene kind of relaxed thing rather than a more professional like this. 54,000 members, says Jillian, in the community, which is awesome. Official Green Diamond says, say that the DJI ban is passed. What would it look like? Depends on the proposals that we've seen, but what it would potentially look like, I want to make sure that this is potentially, there's nothing passed at the moment. It would look like future drones would not be approved, future DJI drones would not be approved in the United States, meaning that new models would not make it to the US market, meaning that you could not fly a new DJI drone that hasn't been approved under the FCC. This would be an FCC approval. As such, any drone that you currently have that's been currently approved would still remain valid. So if you bought an Air 3S, then you can still fly that. If you can still potentially, in this case, you would still be able to buy an Air 3S in the store. You just wouldn't be able to buy the Air 4, wherever that comes out, and the Air 5 and the Air 6. We would basically be stuck in the middle age of drones because we would be stuck wherever DJI stopped, because no other manufacturers right now, American manufacturers, are making drones to compete with the Air series and Mavic series and Mini series. So yeah, you'd be stuck in the middle age. I do want to add that we have heard rumors that Trump might be assigning Brandon Carr back to the FCC. If you don't know Brandon Carr, it's not our friend Brandon Carr from the industry, who's a great guy. It's Brandon Carr, who used to be the FCC commissioner, one of the FCC commissioners. I think they have a few. And he would be going back in there, and he's the anti-DJI dude that has spread false information about DJI over the years, false information that is still being used today against DJI and spread by, lobbying organization like AUVSI that keeps spreading that false information, such as DJI drones record heart rate of people and body temperature of people. This is the lies that the FCC had been putting through official documents to say that DJI was doing these things. As you know, DJI drones cannot record heart rate of people, but only people that actually fly drones. Unfortunately, the folks at AUVSI don't know how to fly drones, and at least the folks that are at the head of AUVSI, including Mr. Robbins and others, and they keep spreading these lies through testimonies in various places, which leads to DJI getting the reputation that it has in the political world. So, sorry, I get sidetracked. Back to Mr. Carr. If Mr. Carr becomes the FCC commissioner again, we can see how much easier they would make it for him to ban potential future drones. So, not a great move, quite frankly. Okay. Fun. Please ask some fun questions. Get an email from PSI stating that they were tasked by the FAA to conduct a drone job analysis survey. I've heard this, or is it legitimate? Sergio, please send us that email. I would like to see what that looks like. That seems a bit of an overreach for PSI to do that, since they're only the test provider, but email it to us, contact@pilotinstitute.com. We'll take a look and let you know. Ben Pacheco says, recent experience, drone scanner. I read drone scammer at first. No, drone scanner. The scanner app will not make available the GPX or CSV data for email delivery. Anything we should know, or an anomaly? I don't know, actually. I don't use that app all that much. So if you're not familiar, Drone Scanner is the app that you can use to find remote ID signal in the area. I usually don't care about doing that. We tested it a while back. It worked okay. I still think I still think remote ID technology is really, really poor technology. And these apps are not a really good user experience. So I tend not to use them. But I don't know. I'm surprised. I don't know why it's not. I recommend reaching out to them directly. Vic says Congress has the authority to limit the power of the FCC commissioner, but they will not, because Congress right now is going to be one-sided, unfortunately. And I'm not saying this in a political way. It's going to be one-sided. So whatever that side decides to do is going to be a lot easier to go through. And if Mr. Carr gets appointed by then whatever that side decides to do he's gonna make happen. So Pat says, who is responsible for a flight for commercial use, but the drone pilot did not have a Part 107? Okay, who is responsible for a flight for commercial use, but the drone pilot did not have a Part 107? Does the business that hired the drone pilot have any responsibility? Potentially. The FAA has said that there would be ramification to the person that causes the flight to happen. So that would be, remember, the FAA has different terms. They have a person in control of the person in control, which is the person that is person manipulating the controls, which is the person that has the remote controller. They have the PIC, the pilot in command, which quite often is also the same as the person manipulating the control. And then there's the operator, which is the person that makes the flight happen, which the business that hires someone could be considered that. With that being said, the FAA would likely go after the pilot first. Even if they don't have a Part 107, they would still be considered the pilot in command, just operating outside the rules, which means potential violations. So but the business could be at stake as well. Robert says, is there a difference between Part 107 pilot registration and recreational use only registration? Thanks in advance. So that's a great question. If you look at the regulation, a drone registration is a drone registration. So let's say that you have only one drone and you get that drone registered first recreationally, because that's the first thing you did, right? When you move to Part 107, if you only have one drone, technically that drone is registered, whether it's recreational or not, it's registered with the FAA. So now it's a registered drone. So you can technically fly that drone under Part 107 without doing anything else, using your recreational registration. Where it gets confusing is when you have more than one drone, because what the regulation says is that a drone flown recreationally, you can use the same registration number for all of your drones flown recreationally. But if you have more than one drone under Part 107, each of those drones needs to be registered individually. So it becomes confusing. Once you have more than one drone, then each of those needs to be registered. So if you added a second drone, then you would need to get a registration for that number, for that aircraft. And now that aircraft would be registered under Part 107 legally. I hope that makes sense. It gets confusing when you have more than one drone. Kimpton says, is it still worth it to get a DJI Inspire 1, even if you get a good deal on it? If Ethan was here, he would totally shake his head yes, but I'm going to have to say no. I wouldn't even recommend an Inspire 2 these days. Inspire 1 is definitely older technology. As great of a drone as it was when it came out, and many years after that, it is past its prime now, even at a good deal. You will get better image quality from a Mini 3 and a Mini 4 than you would from an Inspire 1. Hate to say it. Official Green Diamond, why is it not recommended to fly in snowy weather and cold weather? Great question. Typically, for different reason, if it is actually actively snowing outside, it's obviously moisture that's going to get on your drone, moisture that's eventually going to either melt because your drone is pretty hot, and then potentially get into the electronics. Your drone is not waterproof. Most of them are not, I should say. Some enterprise drones are waterproof. So that's the first thing, avoiding moisture, visible moisture. Same for rain. And then second, that moisture could get onto the propellers. And as the propellers are spinning pretty fast, it could turn into icing your propellers, which means that the drone would essentially lose all of the lift that it's creating and then fall down. We actually have a waiver. We got a waiver in preparation for this winter to be able to fly inside of a snowstorm to demonstrate prop icing and what happens when you get prop on the ice. The drone is going to be equipped with a parachute, so if something happens, then we would have that. But we would have footage of actual ice building onto the props and the drone coming down to crash. So that's reason number one, because of visible moisture and prop icing. Reason number two could be because of visibility. If it's actively snowing, visibility is going to be reduced. Under Part 107, you need at least 3 statute mile visibility to fly, which goes quickly if you have snow coming down. And then the other reason, if it's not actively snowing, but it's actually just cold outside, the battery performance is going to be limited. Your battery is going to die a lot quicker. and even potentially, you may be able to take off, but then have a battery failure soon after. So we recommend putting your batteries inside of your jacket before you take off to keep them kind of warm, and then putting them on quickly and then taking off. And trying to manage that battery temperature. So there are temperature limitations issued by the manufacturer. So make sure that you take a look at those. DJI are typically right around freezing. So we have flown below freezing. A lot of other people have flown below freezing. If it gets into like the negative temperature, I would be extra cautious. It doesn't get that cold here in Prescott, but we do get 15 to 20 degree temperatures, and I think it works just fine in those temperatures. I wouldn't try it below 0 Fahrenheit, that is. Okay, next. I see Sparky saying ludicrous. Oh no, he's saying add ludicrous. That Sparky was getting excited in the comments. He never gets excited in the comments. All right. Noah says, how would Visual Observer be organized in a larger scale flight plan? I don't know what a larger scale flight plan. I'm guessing you're talking about flying further away. Maybe. So if that's what you're thinking, if you're thinking flying further away, visual observers, okay. So let me explain 107.31, which is the visual line of sight requirement. And if that's not your question, it's still going to be good education here. 107.31 says two things. It says that at all times, either the pilot or the visual observer needs to be able to see the drone, It also says that at all times, I'm sorry. Well, I messed it up. Let's rewind. 107.31 says, forget what I just said, that at all times, both the pilot, the person operating the flight controls, the pilot in command, and the visual observer, if one is used, must be able to see the drone. At all times, all of these people must be able to see the drone. So if you're the pilot and the person operating the flight control and you have a visual observer, it means that any time you need to be able to look up and see the drone. I'm not saying that you have to look at it. I'm saying that you have to be able to see it. That's requirement number 1, 107.31 alpha. In Bravo, they also added a clause that says that at all time, one of the two, either the VO or the PIC, must look at the drone, must see the drone, must be looking at it directly. So it means that if you're framing and you're using a visual observer and you're framing your shot, then that person here needs to be looking at the drone and keeping an eye on it. So you're talking about large scale operation. If you were to fly further away from than visual line of sight for the pilot, you can't do that because that's against 107.31 visual line of sight rules. You cannot use visual observers to daisy chain, we call it, to have a visual observer here and another one further and another one further, because at all times, the pilot must be able to see the drone, 107.31 alpha. So in a large-scale operation, the way that I would use visual observers is I would put them in locations where they can see the drone, but they can also see different parts of the sky, because visual line of sight regulation says that you must not only be able to see the drone, but you must have command of the airspace. And that's what I would use my visual observers for, to be looking for traffic at the same time as looking at the drone and always be in contact with you. Now, under Part 107, those visual observers can be further away and they can be in radio contact with you. Sparky, actually, we just talked about Sparky. Sparky does a lot of operation that has visual observers where he has a microphone and an earpiece, and he can hear and be in contact with people as they're flying with his visual observers. So that's how I would use it. I hope that was your question. But yeah, 107.31, the use of visual observers is really interesting because you can't just use them to extend your ability as the pilot to see the drone. You still have to be able to see the drone at all times as the pilot.
I think Sparky's got a new commercial coming out. He's going to post to community.
Yeah, Sparky, I kind of saw something earlier that Sparky was going to do. Who is it for? Lincoln, yeah. He probably came to Prescott to film it, the retirement capital of the world. Just kidding. If you drive a Lincoln, don't take. Yeah, so Sparky has been working with Lincoln to make their commercial. So we did that this weekend along with operating from a moving vehicle. Yeah, awesome. Fun times, Sparky says. Okay, Engineering Drone Services says about a new building. Would it be possible to install a CORS station on the roof for RTK drone operation? Actually, funny you say that. We've been talking to Jared, and I think we're going to do that as soon as we move in. Yes, the answer is yes. Are there any offices with great view? Yeah, actually, the front of the building looks over like the downtown, and in the background is the mountains, the Prescott Mountains, including what we call P Mountain, which has a big P for Prescott. So yeah, all the offices have great views, except for Ben and Ethan's office because they want to be in the cave. Well, Ben asked for a window. We haven't decided if we're going to give it to him yet.
Pretty beaded curtains.
Beaded curtains.
I'll probably be there too.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You said Ben and Ethan.
Oh, I meant you people and you B names. Bo and I meant Bo and Ethan because you guys didn't request a window. Ben requested a window. Yeah, so we might or might not give it to him. The editors like to be in the dark because it's better for editing, apparently. Steven says, is there a number of flight hours that you set for propeller changes on your drone? On the drone, no. On the plane, yes, because the plane has what's called life-limited parts. I think our propeller is 2,000 hours. That's set by the manufacturer. It's called a TBO. Same for the engine, life limited parts. On the drone, no, I have propellers that are as old as the drone. Even on the Mavic 2, I'm pretty sure we've never changed the propellers on the Mavic 2. If there's no sign of damage, there's no real reason to change them. I don't think they decompose or change over time. Maybe in 100 years, but right now I'm not worried about it. Bike Rides says, when flying in automated flight mode, like follow me mode, how can we comply with the maintain line of sight? That's a tough one. You got to be able to see the drone at all times. So in follow mode, I mean, if you turn around and you can see the drone, that satisfies one of them. But I personally would not use follow mode without somebody else having the controls, especially if you're on a moving vehicle like a bicycle or something like that, or a motorcycle. Dave says, sent my Mavic 3 in today for maintenance with 200 hours in the air on it. What parts should DJI replace? Does Pilot Institute do its own maintenance? We do all of our own maintenance. I would not really send a drone to DJI unless something was wrong with it. These drones are really self-sufficient. Look at the battery health, look at the battery cells, and see if the cells are holding voltage, across the board. If it doesn't, DJI will tell you anyway. Clean up the camera, give it a good clean, remove the dust, remove all of that. As far as replacing parts, I don't know that there is any replaced parts. 200 hours is a lot, but not necessarily a ton. So yeah, we do all the maintenance in-house. Had to cancel a Mini 4 Pro because it was in customs and no answer on when it might be released. That sucks. I hate that. Maybe find one locally at a store. Best Buy has them, and buy directly from them. Yisrael says, just joined now. Any update on the FAA and new BVLOS rules? I saw an article this morning that said that those rules are going to be delayed, as we were expecting. A few folks said that by the end of the year, we will have an NPRM, a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. I don't believe it. I think we'll have them later next year. My guess is January or February, if anything. Just remember, there was a whole election that just happened, and then, yeah, and changes and everything. So I doubt it. Supertech says, I have one drone less than 250 grams. I only ever fly recreational. If at some point I want to fly Part 107, which I have, would I need to buy a new drone for that if I wanted the other for recreational purposes? No, you don't. So the only thing is, if you fly under Part 107, you have to get it registered. And you would need to comply with remote ID now because it's registered and because it's flown under Part 107. So here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. That drone right now that you have that's recreational is not registered, meaning that it doesn't need remote ID. Once you fly under Part 107, you need to have it registered, put a label on it, and you need remote ID because it's registered and because it's flown under Part 107. If you wanted to fly that drone under recreational rules, because it is now registered, it now needs remote ID, even if you fly it under recreational rules. So get a remote ID module, slap it on top, and then fly it under Part 107, register it, and then if you need to fly it recreational, I would actually recommend flying recreational. I would recommend flying recreationally by following Part 107 rules. What do I mean? Part 107 doesn't mean that you have to fly for making money or for commercial purposes. Part 107 is any flights in the United States. So you can fly recreational. If I go and record my kids playing at the park, I'm flying under Part 107 rules, even though it's a recreational flight. The rules that you pick, well, let's just say Part 107 can be applied to anything. So I would register the drone, I would put a remote ID module on it, and then I would just fly it under Part 107, period, even if you fly for fun. I hope that makes sense. Practicing Photography says, do you have any lava lamps there yet? No new lava lamps in the new building yet. It's a construction zone. The only lava lamp that we have is here. I'm not as cool as Jillian, who's sponsored by the lava lamp, Big Lava Lamp. It's big business. Okay. Tracy says, I'm looking for a job in the drone industry, hopefully in drone R&D or manufacturing operation. I have a BBA, Project Management Cert 107. Know of any good job boards to apply to? Good question. I would reach out to the big drone manufacturers that are out there and see if they need help. There's always jobs posted, whether it is for I would look for drone manufacturers. There's quite a few of them, and then see what they have available. Julian says, I'm in deep with big lava. That's right. Kenneth says, any idea if I can fly from a public boat launch that's owned by the state of Pennsylvania, or are there any in the same category as state parks? No, it's gonna depend on the local restrictions that the state may have in that area. I doubt that they have a restriction on the boat launch area, but if it's public, then no, shouldn't be a problem. Steven says, can you speculate on DJI Enterprise Drone Leak December release? Maybe. We just talked about that on News Update on Friday, so go take a look at that, Steven. But it looks pretty cool. It looks like, to me, a Mavic-ish body, maybe a Mavic 4, and then a pretty big payload in the front. It almost looks like a Matrice 30-ish type of payload with 3 lenses and then a laser rangefinder. So yeah, be pretty cool.
We speculated on post-flight.
We speculate on post-flight. So for those of you that are not familiar, post-flight is our premium community extended news update. We do news update every week. A lot of you watch it. Actually, tens of thousands of you watch it every week now. I think we get about 20,000 views every episode. But it's pretty short. It's pretty condensed. It's mostly non-opinionated. try my best. I get passionate sometimes, but post-flight is a bit more opinionated. Jason and I sit down with Ben and we talk about those topics. We do it on Monday. It's usually posted midday or late day on Monday in the premium community. So make sure you check it out. It's pretty cool.
You did have a guess on when the Mavic 4 would possibly come out.
I had a guess on when the Mavic 4 might come out. Well, ish. It's difficult to predict right now.
Who won the last guess, by the way?
I did. Vic says, had my first crumble on Saturday. Don't hate me, but meh. Bah.
Oh.
Vic is no longer allowed in his building. It's a good thing we're moving to a new building. Well, let's put it this way. It's a lot of sugar. So I think I said it. I don't know if I said it on here or if it was on the Friday. No, it was on the Friday news update. I had lost a bet here, so I had to buy crumble. And I bought 12 of the mini crumbles, which are supposed to be, like mere mortal human size crumbles. The big ones are like 4 cookies equivalent, so it's impossible to eat one. And they brought me, instead of 12 mini, they brought me 12 normal size. So we had 48 equivalent cookies on Thursday, I think it was. So yeah, a lot of cookie. But yes, they are very sweet. They're very rich. You have to get them when they're warm. The warm chocolate chip is pretty darn good. But it's thick. It's intense. It's dense. Dense is the perfect word for that. It's a lot of cookies. Man, this chair is really not comfortable. Okay, new building. We're gonna get a new chair for Monday night news update. Sheen says, on air control, when you see notifications, when it refers to something that is restricted 1 mile away, is that okay to fly a drone as long as you avoid that space? Yes. So air control will give you kind of notifications of airspace that's nearby, not necessarily that you are in, just to tell you, hey, you might be entering that airspace. So if it's a mile away, just don't fly a mile in that direction. You'll be good. Robert says, does the FAA have jurisdiction over the water? Yeah, absolutely. Remember, the FAA has jurisdiction over the airspace anywhere in the country up to 4 miles off the coast. 4 miles off the coast. So yeah, absolutely. Practicing Photography says, what is the logic for not requiring all drones to be registered recreational or not? Don't even get me started. It was well, I don't know how to say it nicely. It was part of the exemption, the recreational exemption that the FAA passed. So there was a lot of pushback when Part 107 came out, and I think rightfully so, that folks that are flying for recreational purposes shouldn't have to take a $175 test. Although back then it was a bit cheaper because PSI raised their prices because they have a monopoly. But there was a lot of pushback that not everybody should be operating that way. So the FAA said, well, if you're flying for recreational purposes, you're probably just at a park flying for fun. So just follow these rules, 8 or 9 simple rules, and then you're good. And as part of that, they added that you don't need to register the drone if it's a small drone, because it doesn't really have it's not really much of a threat to anything and anyone. So it became convoluted why the FAA didn't do the same for Part 107 drones that were under 250 grams. I'm not quite sure. It would have made it a lot easier, but that's not what happened. So yeah. And it is 12 miles off the coast. I don't know why I said 4 miles. It is 12 miles off the coast that the FAA. No, I'm thinking there is something else with 4 miles, but my brain is totally fried right now. So, yeah. Ludicrous says, how long after your Part 107 expires do you have to do the recurrent training? So your Part 107 does not expire. Your currency expires. So if you look at your card, the actual card you get from the FAA, there's no expiration date on there. That's because it doesn't really expire. So you can take a break. Let's say that for the next 2 years, you don't want to fly drones. You're not going to get current. That's fine. Your certificate is still valid. You're just not current, meaning you cannot exercise the privileges of your certificate. So when you're ready to come back, do the recurrent training, you get current again, and then now you can exercise the privileges. But your currency expires, but your certificate does not. Unless you do something dumb and they take it away from you. Do the waterproof jackets actually work? Well, good question. We've had one for a long time before any of you guys were on board. That was when I was back working from home. They sent us one. It's Phantom Rain is the name of the company, and we put that on the Mavic 2, and we tested it. Boy, we put moisture on it because we were trying to. That's when Jason first started, I think. We were trying to get freezing on propellers by spraying it with literally a spray can to get propellers under the right condition and to build ice, which we did a little bit of it, not enough to make the airplane fall. But the drone never had any issues. So yeah, I would say they work.
Have you tried taking it swimming in Watson?
That's not waterproof. That's, but no, I have never put a drone in the water. Knock on wood. If appropriate, could you give a brief definition of altitude density again? Okay, careful with the words here. Density altitude, not altitude density. Density altitude is a concept that's difficult for people because they think it has to do with the air density. It actually doesn't. The term density altitude is an altitude. Think about density dash altitude. It's a type of altitude. So today, here in Prescott, we're at 5,000 feet, roughly above sea level. Outside, on a standard day at 5,000 feet elevation, it's supposed to be 5 degrees Celsius, which is like 5 degrees Celsius is like 40 some degrees, between 40 and 45, I think, roughly. Today is an example of it's actually warmer outside than it is on a standard day. So as a result, if I fly my drone, if I fly my airplane outside, then my drone is not, and my airplane is not going to feel like it's at 5,000 feet because it's warmer outside. Anytime it's warmer, performance gets worse. So the equivalent altitude that my drone feels like it's at, or my airplane feels like it's at, is called the density altitude. It's an altitude. So today it might be 6,000 feet. If I do the calculation, there's a little formula that you can go through, and then the density altitude is 6,000 feet, then my drone feels like it's at 6,000 feet. Now, does it make a difference? My airplane, 6,000 feet versus 5,000 feet doesn't make that big of a difference. Now, in the summer, it makes a big difference. If I'm at 5,000 feet and it's 30 degrees Celsius or 35 degrees Celsius or 40 degrees Celsius, which happens, now I'm like 35 degrees over the normal altitude that we're at. And that's a big increase in density altitude. So it could mean that outside, my airplane or my drone feels like it's at 8,000 feet. Now there's a big difference there. My airplane specifically is going to take a lot longer to take off on the runway that's at 8,000 feet than if it is at 5,000 feet or if it's at sea level. So it makes a big difference, especially in the summer. But that term, density altitude, is an equivalent altitude at which the drone or the airplane feels like it's at. And the higher the temperature and the lower the pressure, the higher the density altitude. So if it's a low pressure day outside on a very hot day, which happens, then it's pretty bad. And if I'm already at a high altitude, then it's even worse. So keep that in mind. That's what the term density altitude. It has nothing to do, in a sense, with the air density. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite of the air density thing, because the higher you go, the lower the air density. So the lower the air density, the higher the density altitude. I'm going to say that again. The lower the air density, means we're very high up in altitude. The lower the air density, the higher the density altitude, because it's an altitude. I hope this clarifies it. This is a very confusing thing. There's actually a question on one of our, we have a 10 question part 107 exam. And once a month, at the very least, I have somebody sending me either a nasty email saying, you guys are a bunch of idiots. You don't even know, you don't even have the right questions in here, blah, 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 because they don't understand density altitude. So I try nicely to say, well, you're actually incorrect. It doesn't refer to the air density. It refers to density altitude, which is a specific term. Then I quote them the Pilot Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge and all that, and then they usually come back. Sometimes apologize, sometimes they don't even come back. So, pew! Sparky says, you're my density. My watch is yelling at me, I need to stand up. Okay, Engineer Drone Services, Minot says, if appropriate, could you give... Oh, that was Minot, okay. I hope that answers your question, Minot. Pilot Shark Hanger says, is Autel a good choice over DJI because of the possible ban? Well, it depends, because now there's been talk about doing the same to Autel that they're doing to DJI, because Autel is also a Chinese brand. So, nope. What's your best guess over mandates that will come out when Part 108 comes out? I've talked about this a couple times in the past. It's difficult at this stage to get a good grasp on Part 108, although there are some hints from some documents. There was a group of folks that got together and gave recommendations to the FAA on beyond visual line of sight. This was a while back. The Drone Advisory, the DAC, the Drone Advisory Committee. I don't have anything from the FAA because they're very tight-lipped on any of this. But my guess is that Part 108 will give you, obviously, the ability to fly beyond visual line of sight, but with some severe restrictions as far as equipment needed on the aircraft, as far as more than likely a type of a remote ID called network remote ID, which will require your drone to be connected to some kind of local network, like a 5G network like you have on your phone, and more than likely detect and avoid technology, whether it's detect and avoid technology that's on the ground, sending that information to the drone. So imagine like a radar on the ground that captures traffic data and then shares it with the drone, or onboard detect and avoid technology. Because remember, the FAA is going to allow you to fly beyond visual line of sight where you won't have a full 180 or 360 degree view of the airspace. So you need to be able to avoid other aircraft that are coming in, whether they're unmanned aircraft flying at that altitude or manned aircraft flying at that altitude. So I think it's not going to be, and I've said this before, and I don't want to be pessimistic, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as some people might think. I think it's going to require a bit more equipment, and I think it's going to be more of an elite thing, if you want. It's not going to be as easy as just taking a test, maybe getting a new card in the mail from the FAA saying that you're beyond visual line of sight certified. And the reason I'm saying all this is because I've been dealing with the FAA for 20 some years now as a pilot, and I kind of understand the ecosystem that they're trying to evolve around. I also understand the unmanned traffic management system. I've read several documents that the FAA has put out about how they want to manage the airspace from an unmanned perspective. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I'm right or wrong, but that's my guess so far.
See if you can fit these questions in.
7 minutes, plenty of time. We only have, 20 questions. All right, rapid fire. You guys get me talking. Get excited. How likely is it to get a BVLOS waiver on private property below the tree line? I want to fly through the woods, warning signs, VO in the woods, fire extinguisher on site. Shouldn't be very difficult, quite frankly, for that. So yeah, I would definitely submit to the FAA. Japan Puff says, I own a DJI Mini 4 Pro. Subject tracking fails spectacularly when the drone moves downhill. Skier Are there drones that can actually do this properly? Ooh, good question. Yeah, Mavic, the Mini 4 Pro, I'm surprised it doesn't maintain altitude. But I know the Mavic 3 will do that. So yeah, I would say Mavic 3. Xavier says, I'm currently a recreational flyer. Do I have to re-register the drone once I become Part 107? I mentioned that a little bit earlier. I don't know if you picked up on that, but only re-register if you have more than one drone. If you only have one drone, do not. If you do, then yes. Cal, our friend Cal is here. What does it cost to get a signed photo of Vic's work? That is, I heard, in the millions these days. So, but on an airline pilot salary, that's easy. Do you need to report a, that's B, from B, letter B. Letter B is here. Do you need to report a 1.84 pound drone to tree crash if flying recreationally? As long as it didn't damage anything or anyone, then no. Unless you had a flight control failure, in which case it would need to be reported to the NTSB. Supertech says, if I fly a 4S 550 milliamp battery to land now, 3.2 volts per cell, how long should I wait to recharge? Thanks for that about remote ID, recreational flying. I would say don't wait too long. Just watch for the battery temperature, but you don't want to leave these batteries in that very low voltage mode for too long, unless they're very hot, in which case I would wait a little bit. How long does it usually take to get approval on OOP waiver? I haven't heard of the latest and greatest times, but actually somebody just emailed us not too long ago. I think they said 2 weeks or 3 weeks. One of our students emailed us saying thank you. So Japan Puff says, should a foreigner, not a permanent resident, buying a drone in the US and wanting to operate in the US under Part 107, register it in their home country and then obtain DOT approval to operate? No, I would not do that. I would register it in the US for sure, without doing it at home first. It's a lot more paperwork if you do it that way. Al says, flying a Skydio 2 using the beacon while driving a vehicle. Ooh, if you fly the S2 to fly in front of you, it's technically in line of sight. Since the S2 is autonomous, it's flying itself legal. Well, 107.31 says you need to have command of the airspace. If you're inside your vehicle, I would argue that you cannot see on top of you, even if the drone is right in front of you. If, let's say, a helicopter came from right on top of your vehicle and flew into the drone, then you would be liable in this case. So I would say not under Part 107. George says, do the Mini 4 Pro have built-in remote ID? When I registered, they accepted as having remote ID. That's when it gets confusing. The Mini 4 Pro only has remote ID with the bigger battery, the whatever they call it, the large battery. If it has a smaller battery, then it doesn't have remote ID. We did a video on that. That was a big controversy at the time. Retired Fire Chief, is Happy Hour community a paid subscription? Nope. Happy Hour is free as long as you are a student in our in one of our courses, even a free course. Engineer Drone Services says, when will drone LiDAR be available? Drone LiDAR? I know affordable is a tough definition. Oh, be affordable. I'm sorry. I thought you said available. We actually found... So we found a unit. I'm not going to say which one yet because we're going to test it. That's $400. Now, granted, it's not going to give you the millimeter accuracy from any other LiDAR units, but we're going to test it to see if at $400 it can actually be something viable for even getting your feet wet into LiDAR. Again, like I said, it's not going to be a $40,000 unit because it's a $400 unit. So we expect results from a $400 unit. But for most people to get started and get their feet wet and understand LiDAR and processing the data, it might actually be perfect. So it's actually not a drone solution specifically, but it's designed to be on board of other remotely controlled devices. I'm just going to stop it at that. Formerly Phone Photography says, what do you think of the idea of Topgolf and FPV drone? Folks could get on the drones if they make it through a course, and if someone hits the drone with a golf ball, they win. It's funny. I had a student reach out to us maybe 6 months to a year ago, and that's what he was going to do. I don't know if he did, but at golf courses, he was going to have drones flying around that were made of like a degradable material, if I can say, that was just going to kind of explode, and for target practice with a golf ball, so that he was going to make that a paid option to do that. So yeah, that's absolutely something possible. Oh, my watch said that I did my stand-up goal by sitting right here. Thank you, watch. 3 more questions, 1 minute. Look at that, 4 more questions. Airhead says, while setting up remote ID and verifying it is running, I found many pilots online that felt a drone that comes with remote ID does not have to be verified that the remote ID is broadcasting. Ooh, that's a... So, I mean, it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to make sure that remote ID is functioning correctly. When you turn it on. Actually, I'm trying to think if it actually is. I think we had the discussion in the office. It's the manufacturer. Well, yes, let's put it this way. It's the manufacturer. No, I think it still is the PIC responsibility to make sure that it works. I'm going to have to go back and read, because it's kind of it's not a fine print, but it's a regulation, analysis. I'll take a look at that. Maybe come back next week and we can talk about that. RTW Drone Pilot says Evo 2 has started juking. Okay, hold on. Evo 2 Pro, I started juking downward in motion flight and while hovering about half to a meter continuously unless corrected, sporadic occurrence, all calibration complete. I guess my question would be, well, how much GPS do you have? How many satellites do you have on your GPS thing? That would be my question. Will the isogonic line interfere with my drone? No, Robert. Isogonic lines are graphical representation of the difference between the North Pole and the magnetic pole in the United States. Well, anywhere in the world. On a chart, there's going to be a line that says, for example, here in Arizona, it's 10 degrees east. So that's 10 degrees of variation between the North Pole and the magnetic pole in the United States. As a drone pilot, that has zero effect on what you do. These lines of magnetic pole are always running around in all over the globe, and they just, unless there's a big solar flare that might affect your drone, but that's not really magnetic interference like what we're talking about here. So no, isogonic lines are just mostly for airplane pilots to navigate and to account for that. I'll dig it says, and that's the last question, any guess when the Air 3S is going to be available on Amazon and Best Buy? No, there's been a lot of discussions about why it's not available yet, and I'm wondering if that has anything to do with this customs issue, but I don't know. Whew. 20 plus satellites. Yeah, I don't know. If that's the case, you might need to get in contact with Autel support, which unfortunately is not always the greatest, so be patient. But I would ask them, but that doesn't seem right. Autel drones are actually pretty rock solid typically with GPS and accuracy. So, yep, that doesn't sound right. Okay. All right. How often are these live events? Every week, every Monday, same time, 4 p.m. Arizona time. And yeah, we were here all the time. So thank you guys for watching. I know we're getting a little bit past the time. We will be back on Friday morning for news updates. We will be back on Friday evening in the community as well. And if you have premium community, you can see post-flight, which we just posted.
It'll be later tonight or tomorrow morning.
Oh, it'll be later tonight or tomorrow morning. Okay. All right. That's all we have. We'll see you next time.